Arizona baseball is off to Omaha. How did this fairy tale story occur, and can the Wildcats win it all?
You are Locked On Wildcats, your daily podcast on the Arizona Wildcats. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for keeping it Locked On Wildcats and making this your first listen of the day. I am your host, Mike Luke. Locked On your team every day. All right, now, Arizona is off to the College World Series. We are going to talk a lot about that. We're going to talk about the last 10 to 15 years for Arizona because it has been quite good for Arizona baseball. But first, we got to talk about this. Arizona beats North Carolina. Now, I'll be honest with you. Again, I'm never going to sit here and say that I am a college baseball expert. I am not. But watching that game, watching the series, you kind of got the sense that maybe there was a little bit more raw talent for North Carolina. But, man, it really didn't matter, though, because Arizona is just a scrappy team. They find out a way to win games that is just a unique quality to have in a team. And Arizona is right at the top of that list. And it's pretty much a team effort across the board. You watch this team, some games you're like, man, the pitching isn't there, but then the hitting steps up, or the hitting steps up, or the pitching's there and the hitting isn't necessarily there. They've won basically every kind of way this season, and it has been incredibly impressive to watch. One thing about it, too, that's also very impressive, too, is just kind of this roster that Chip Hale has put together. We got to talk about Chip Hale for a second, because Chip is hailing on the haters. And the first one is, I would say, I never understood when people are like, well, Chip Hale, he's not going to be able to recruit. He doesn't have any recruiting connections. Why would you think that? The man has been in baseball his entire life. You really think that he is just going to come in here and say, well, I don't really know what I'm doing. I never really understood that mentality. That made next to no sense for me about that with Chip. The other thing, too, he's put together a really, really good roster, and the thing about him, too, is that he has also been a guy that he's just kind of, like I said, he's just kind of got it. He's just kind of grinded the right way. You look at some of these players' parents. You look at like a Summerhill or a Mason White, and they all just talk about, Chip is a really, really good coach. He's got an endearing quality to him, and he's about that. So let's just kind of talk about it. A lot of this was local recruiting. I mean, it just was. You look at Mason White. Mason White is obviously awesome. Sal Point kid. Arizona got him. And again, he's a good player. I mean, you look at Kane. You look at some of the pitchers across the roster as well. Local kids that made good. So you got to give them a ton of credit right there for all of this. Now, the other thing too about this is, like I said, people were wondering, how was Chip going to recruit all of that? Recruited just fine. And so there is, like I said, and he's going to put a lot of guys in the major leagues, and Chip also wants to be here. That is the other thing. Now, let's talk a little bit about the pitching. I'll say this. Now, take it for what it's worth coming from me. I have a lot more confidence with Smith Bailey is on the mound than the other pitchers. When I watch Garzar, like I said, with Garzar feels kind of like a batting practice pitcher. In the limited amount of time that I've watched him, he's basically been shelled. He's been hit around. Karnowski, kind of the same thing. And again, I get that that's not really what they are. I'm just talking about what I've seen in the postseason. Smith Bailey, though, is the one that you look at and you're like, all right, that guy looks like he's got some major league potential to him. So you kind of go with it from that premise to begin with. And then but Tony Pluto, I mean, if there's a better closer in all of college baseball than Pluto, I'd love to see him. I mean, that guy went all in. Not only did he go all in, he basically allowed it for Arizona to be able to, say, okay, we got to go 2 innings. We got to go, he went 2 innings, then he went 1, and he shut that thing down against one of the most vaunted lineups in all of college baseball. So, again, he's another one. this doesn't happen without him. He's kind of that old school Mariano Rivera, where it's like you come in and you know exactly what you're going to get and what exactly you're going to be able to get from him. The thing about it too is that I'm also super super excited about is this team is playing hot. And I think that really matters in all of this. And I think that's an underrated aspect that not enough people are looking at. But first, FanDuel. FanDuel, my friends. FanDuel. Check it out. All right, now, here's the deal with FanDuel. You got all kinds of stuff. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and that means the NBA Finals are here. 1-1, a best-of-5 series at this point. Pacers now have home court advantage. And again, you got all kinds of fun stuff. The great thing about it is when the momentum shifts, there's can't miss. You want to be able to bet on that because, again, sometimes you might look and say, you know what, I got a little bit more knowledge than the folks in Vegas on this, and that's cool. And again, which players are in the big moments? Hey, guess what? Tyrese Halliburton, he's good when the game's on the line, and now you could be tracking their trends. If you've got a read on who's heating up, why not just play with that same time or that same game parlay? Check that out. Again, new to FanDuel, it's super super simple. It's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and use your first $5 and place your first $5 bet, and if your bet wins, you get $200 in bonus bets. Make every bet more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. FanDuel, check it out. Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats and making this your first listen of the day. I am your host, Mike Luke. All right, now let's talk a little bit about momentum with Arizona. That's the other thing, too. Some people, like Shear was saying, that he doesn't think that momentum really matters for much. I disagree with that. I think momentum means a lot when it comes to baseball, and you're seeing that right now with Arizona because, again, they've just got a confidence level that is hitting on all cylinders. We've seen this before, and you've got Coastal Carolina coming up. Now, Coastal Carolina made quick work of Auburn, obviously, get all of that, but at the same time, though, you also know that Coastal Carolina, I know they got the 23-game winning streak, but they're also playing UNC Asheville and like Liberty and schools like that in there. So again, take that one for what it is worth. Now, the next thing, too, but with Arizona, you're going to have a fully rested staff. You're going to have a fully rested team ready to go because, man, like I said, those pitchers earned their keep in this past series. Those pitchers, they went about it, and that was not necessarily an easy slog, but they made it happen. And again, I want to give Smith Bailey a ton of credit because once he gave up that 3-run home run, a lot of people were like, "Oh, yep, this isn't good. Arizona has no chance of winning this." But then he settled down, and the rest of the staff did a great, great job, obviously. And then there was some timely hitting, and you kind of see that in college baseball, too, where, like with Mason White, when he gets the RBI, that shift right there, that was something that definitely helped Arizona. Arizona took advantage of that. Obviously, Arizona was able to move on from there. So with Coastal Carolina, though, it gets fascinating because, again, this is a team this is a program that is very, very good. Obviously, Arizona knows them from playing in the World Series, so that is, that's something that's interesting. A little bit of a background there, but you just got to keep winning. You just got to keep stacking these wins. You don't want to be. Listen. You're one of the final 8 in the field. You don't want to be. You don't want to be 2 and out. So again, getting that first victory, that's going to be a huge one for the Wildcats. And I don't see any reason why they can't. Like I said, North Carolina is a team that they just look the part across the board. When you watch them, they got one of the best pitchers in the game. They got some of the best hitters, and Arizona was able to go into their house and beat them. And like I said, I think that's a real testament to Chip and what he's been able to do here. And he's been able to do it with a little bit of he's been able to do it with a little bit of a quietness. He's been able to do it with a little bit of a just kind of like a modesty that I think is very, very becoming. And keep in mind, too, when it comes to Arizona baseball, I mean, this is a blue blood program. I mean, say what you want, but this is a team that's won 4 College World Series in the last, 12 years. They've been to 4 they're four or five college World Series. You got a national championship in there. You got a runner up. I mean, there's a lot to like there. And that spanned three different coaches. That spanned Andy Lopez, Jay Johnson, and Chip Hale. And all of those guys, none of those guys could be any more different. I mean, they're all different. Andy Lopez was the guy who was here for a while, kind of laid back. But somebody that just really really recruited well towards the end, and then you had Jay Johnson come in, and Jay Johnson was that little firebrand upstart, kind of that firecracker, and then you've got Chip Hale, that's kind of old reliable and all of that, and that's where I think it's Arizona. This has been able to span multiple coaches, and I think that's something that's also exciting. Now, there's also a national narrative that has been pushed that we need to push back a little bit on this show. Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats and making this your first listen of the day. I am your host, Mike Luke. Okay, now let's talk a little bit about the national narrative that's been pushed about the SEC and how great it was. We had to hear the Texas coach talk about how winning the SEC is basically more impressive than winning, the College World Series. No, it's not. These teams almost all got bounced immediately, and so many of them were hosts, too. This is something, too, that is just, like I said, the SEC's done a lot of really good things, but the obsession with the SEC and how ESPN pushes it is insane. Just look at it this year, for example. Like I said, I mean, you got these programs that are they're just not very, that just went in there and have basically just kind of wet the bed, and at some point, you just got to wonder, why are we stacking the field? It was like with basketball. No, there doesn't need to be 14 or 15 teams or 18 or 19 or 20 team SEC teams in here, especially teams that just aren't good. Like, why is Oklahoma in the NCAA tournament? Things like that. If you go 6-12, it is what it is. So the Texas coach, though, when he's talking about that, no, dude, get out of here. That's all nonsense. All right, but so with Arizona, though, we're going to talk about this a little bit later in the week. Is it sustainable as well? I believe it is. You look at how Chip Hale is recruiting. He's bringing in one of the best staffs, or he's bringing in one of the best recruiting classes in the country. I think it's 18 or something. But with baseball, it's just about who you can get into school, who can get on campus, who you get in there, and if you can get the right people in there, and then you're going to take your chances from there. But I think, with Chip Hale and his eye for talent, I think you got to feel pretty good about it. So there is, like I said, there's that. But just a massive, massive win for Chip and the guys against North Carolina, and they deserved it. They play their butts off, and this is also a staff, too, that, when you watch all these guys, they work in unison, and Chip's just a cool dude. Chip's an easy guy to be around. Chip's a fun guy. You watch Chip, and you can just tell that Chip gets it, and I think that's why it's fun. There's going to be some guys, it's probably going to be their last ride. Summerhill definitely gone. Mason White, I would assume, gone. There's going to be some other guys, obviously, as well, that are going to be gone. And I think that's why you need to, like I said, you need to be able to capitalize on this. But this is a postseason, and I think a lot of people were just like, all right, just get to a super regional, and then we'll take it from there. But now you're in the College World Series, and I think that's something that you got to give a lot of credit to, and you got to give a lot of credit to this staff because they also, like I said, North Carolina, that was not a matchup that a lot of people saw Arizona winning. I think North Carolina was minus 3,300. Before then, or something like that. I mean, I'm not minus 33. Minus 330. Arizona won that one, and again, that happened after that 18-2 win, and I think that's just what's super exciting about this and where they're at now. Throughout the week, we're going to be talking about Coastal Carolina. We're going to be talking about what do you need to know, and again, like I said, I'm going to be looking stuff up here, and we'll get into a little bit of Arizona basketball as well. We've got a lot to get to. We're got a lot to get to on this, and it's going to be intriguing. But like I said, pretty cool week here for Arizona. Off to Omaha. They say it's one of the coolest environments going, and I think that's where you're like, all right, well, Let's just see how this one goes. But Arizona's got as good a chance as anybody at this point. I will stick by that momentum. And Arizona's got all the momentum right now, and that's it. It's a pretty well-rounded roster. Like I said, there's been some struggles, but overall, this is a team that I think can pretty much look any team in the eye and say, yeah, we got a chance of beating you. And that's really where these Wildcats are at this point. But as always, very much appreciate you making Locked On Wildcats your first listen of the day. I'm your host, Mike Luke. Bear down and back the A, and we will be back with you tomorrow.